Welcome back to the Fi Guys podcast. This is Fi Friday Feedback. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to be recapping Monday's episode, which I hope you had a chance to go back and listen to. That episode was all about mastering debt, breaking free, and building stability. And in today's episode, we're going to be recovering what we talked about there, doing a viewer mailbag, and then finishing off with win of the week. So Dominic, what did you think about Monday's podcast? I felt like we went pretty deep and had a lot of good analogies this time, which I'm going to try to use more often based off what I see in the comments.
Yeah, the analogies were spot on, especially the one about the helicopter in the fog regarding the crisis fund. If you don't know what I'm referencing, I definitely recommend going back and listening to Monday's episode. No, there's so much great information in there. And, I will say I wrote a joke down from last week that I didn't get a chance to squeeze in. And I'm not going to let that go. I'm not going to let that fly by again. So I'm going to start this week off with a little bit of some dark humor. It's a debt joke, so it works. It's fitting. So for today's joke of the day, I guess, maybe we'll keep this series going. My debt and I have an understanding. I ignore it, and it ruins my life quietly in the background. A little bit dark. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as Chris and I did. I ran it by Chris the first time, and he was on the floor basically laughing. So this is the second time on that joke. But yeah, I mean, if you ignore it, it will ruin your life quietly. And at the end, it usually doesn't end quietly, though. Usually at the end, it's like, hey, I want my money. I got to get paid. You got to pay me off. It's like, where's my bankruptcy, right? So, yeah, a lot of great stuff in Monday's episode. So I'm excited to recap it. We did talk a little bit about the avalanche and the snowball method. If you guys don't know what that is, I'll give you a few seconds to kind of think up what that is and what the difference is. I know hybrid is the easiest one to know the differences between them because they're the difference between both of them, right? And which happens to be my favorite one. But my favorite thing about the last podcast on Monday was the crisis fund. And I just want to talk a little bit briefly about that, the importance of it. Now, obviously, paying off your debts is super important, right? Not building up bad debt, super important, right? But life comes at you quick, and it comes at you at a random pace. 1 minute, everything's great. The next minute, all 4 of your tires have been blown out, right? And I've seen it. I don't know how, but I've seen it, right? The crisis fund is a way for life and your comfortableness to be a barrier in between. And, I don't hear anybody talking about this online. It's always the emergency fund. And getting more into conversation with Chris, this is actually another one of the Fi Guys exclusives. I don't want to say we invented it, but we're on a little bit of the cutting edge with this one, boys. So the crisis fund, if you don't know, it's around $1,000, right? You can kind of pull and tug to wherever you want it to be. And maybe, Chris, maybe you can kind of chime in on this on, I know we talked about it being $1,000, but, with inflation and, different things happening in the world, is the crisis fund at 1,000? Does that make sense still?
Yeah, so when I talked about that on Monday's episode, I said $1,000 is a good de facto number if you don't have a clear number. But something that I've tried to really enact for the crisis fund is to try to make it a true crisis. And what a true crisis typically has is, if it's a true crisis, usually insurance will cover a true crisis. Think of a car crash, think of a medical issue, think of your house burning up and you have mortgage or renter's insurance. So since personal finance is personal, I really wanted to try to create the crisis fund to be able to match people personally. So what I've always said is the crisis fund should be whatever your highest deductible is. Now, most people's highest deductible is typically on their car or maybe on their house, which is usually around $500 to $1,000. I've seen people though who have deductibles that are $5,000. So it's always going to range depending on where you are in your life. If you want to have a higher deductible, that's fine. That just means you take on more risk. If you want to take on more risk, it means you need to put some forethought into saying, if I'm going to take on more risk, then I need to have a backup plan in case that risk gets called, in case something goes wrong and I need to help it. The reason that I said $1,000, that there are some people who listen to the podcast that I've spoken with who say, Chris, I don't have any insurance. Like, I don't have car insurance. I don't have home insurance. I don't have any of this stuff. What do I do at that point? At that point, that's where I say $1,000 is a good place. Not the right place, but a good place to at least target to start out with. Because that crisis fund, it's a stepping stone to the emergency fund. The crisis fund gives you a little bit of breathing room to start seeing 10 feet in front of you, so you're not focused on issue. Because if you're just dealing with every single issue, kind of like a hydra, and I cut off one head and two more comes, but now I'm focused just on one head and I cut it again, it just keeps on happening. That crisis fund allows you to take a step back and be like, oh, hey, I'm fighting a hydra. Every time that I cut off a head, it makes the situation worse. What can I do now to make this a better situation? That's what that does. It gives you that perspective. It allows you to detach just for a second. And the more you go down this path of financial independence, the more and more you get to detach, the more and more long-term you get to look. So it's not just, what can I do to survive for this next minute? What can I do to live for this next minute? What can I do to live for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years?
Yeah, and it's really having that long-term focus and developing a plan, right? And if you don't have a plan, you fail to plan to fail, right? Big shout out to my mom for always drilling that one into my head. But it's a great quote. It's a great quote. And if you haven't gone back and listened to episode 1 and 2, I guess, episode 1, episode 2, if you understand the structure of the Five Guys podcast, Friday episode is always a recap. So I don't know if I want to count that, but the first 2 episodes of the Fi Crash course, those are going to set up a great foundation for you. Right? And as we continue on this journey, we're going to go through a lot of different things, a lot of different topics. That's really going to be your Swiss Army knife of knowledge when it comes to finance. So please remember to stick around and hit the notification bell and all that fun stuff. What scares me is a lot of people don't understand how fast their debt grows, how fast it doubles. And maybe you've heard about this rule, maybe you haven't, but we call it the rule of 72, right? You take your percentage on whether it's your credit card, whether it's the stock market, whatever it is, whether it's your cap rate, right? You take that percentage, you divide it by 72, and that gives you the amount of time it takes for that to double. And I don't remember, what was the one we referenced last time for it to double in like 2 years or something like that, or 15% doubles in like 3 years, something crazy like that.
Yeah, so typically when we talk about investments, we say that investments on average, if you put into a broad market index, return somewhere between 9 to 10% if you reinvest your dividends. So if it's at 9, let's just say 10% for simple math, your money should double roughly every 7 years. 10 divided or 72 divided or 10 divided by 72, 7.2 years. So every 7 years. But most people's credit cards have interest rates of 15 to 25%. So let's take that upper range and let's divide 25 into 72 or 72 into 25, whatever direction you want to do it in. And you're going to come to find out that it comes over just over 3 years. So over every 3 years, that interest rate, that amount of debt doubles if you're not paying it off. And that's really scary because a lot of people that we know are making minimum payments on their credit cards. If you're making minimum payments, that's literally the minimum. They call it the minimum payment for a reason. It's the amount to not get reflected on your credit score that you are delinquent. But that does not mean that it's paying down the debt in the most efficient way possible. In fact, it's going to keep you in debt for longer because just like how compound interest can work in our favor when we're talking about building that snowball for our retirement, building our net worth up and up and up and how much money we have, it can also work against you in terms of debt. Debt can grow against you. And unfortunately, it grows substantially faster than against you than it does for you. Because there are things like in the stock market, I can't guarantee that every single year the stock market is going to be up 9%, 10%, 11%. But when you have debt, that interest rate is guaranteed to stay at that point. You can always restructure, you can do something to try to maybe mitigate it or change it, but that amount will stay for the most part fixed 100%. And it fixed against you.
Yeah. It's always against you, right? It's going to be a brutal battle, but it's one that you're going to have to fight. But that's why you got, different tactics and strategies, and you can really switch it up. And there's no one size fits all when it comes to personal finance, right? We talked a lot about how personal finance is personal. You have to use it and customize it to yourself. What might work for Chris, what might work for me, might not work for you, and vice versa, right? We're all different, and we're all willing to sacrifice different things and do different things in order to meet or reach a certain goal. Is there anything that was kind of sticking out that you wanted to mention from last podcast that you wanted to recap on Friday's episode?
Yeah, I want to talk about something you just brought up there, that there's many different ways of doing this. And one of the things that I find most disheartening about not what we do, Dominic, but what people in our industry do, what people who give out financial advice do, and that they say that there's only one way. And if you don't choose the one way that I'm saying, then you are fundamentally stupid, that you're a moron, that you can't do it right. And there's so many people that I've helped, that I've coached, that we have spoken to on the Five Guys podcast and offline, for people who have reached out to us who said like, hey, I started doing the avalanche, but then I heard from Dave Ramsey I'm supposed to do this, or I heard from this person that's not the right way of doing it. So I switched to do this thing. Personal finance is far more personal than it is finance. I'm going to say it's 80 to 90% personal. The other 20 to 10% is the math, is the finance portion. I think that a lot of people that are quote unquote financial professionals, quote unquote financial experts, the reason that they get so many good followers, the reason that people follow them is because they seem to have it all together, because they seem to say things with certainty. I know this for sure. There is nothing that we can know for sure. The only thing that we know for sure is that we exist. Or the only thing that I know for sure is that I exist. I can't even know that you exist. All I know is me. So for you to go around saying that there is only one way to do things, it doesn't say anything about the system. It says something about the person saying the words, that this is the only way. And the way I look at that is that they are so uncertain in their planning, in the way that they have chose to go about things, that they feel that they need to get other people to go with them to feel certain. Too many times in life do people go around not knowing who they are inside, not knowing what it is that they want. So they go seeking other people's approval, other people who don't know who they are, just to tell them who they are. And if you can't get that, you go around and you try to tell people, this is what you must do to be good, just like me. Because I don't feel good inside. But if I got you to do what I'm doing, then at least I could feel better, because at least there's strength in numbers. So anytime you see somebody who's like, this is the only way, if you don't do it this way, you're stupid, blah, 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 blah. It has nothing to do with the system that they're saying is right or wrong. It has to do all with them and how they feel uncomfortable in themselves. So they try to bring you along for it so that either you can sink or swim with them, because they don't want to be alone, because they don't want to be with themselves.
Such an interesting take, honestly. Going around asking people what to do, what your why is, right? Finding your path. And I think, it's funny that I don't know about the viewer, I don't know about you guys, but I know, Chris, I think you can relate to this, but I feel like the more you develop as a person and the more you like look into other people, the more you realize that most people don't know where they're going or what they're doing. They're literally just they're just winging it. They're literally just winging it. And I think we all can do a better job of living with intention. And really, if you don't start by understanding who you are and what you want, and that's honestly the hardest question, right? But at least having some framework of where to go from there, every direction is going to be the wrong direction.
The amount of times that I've coached somebody, when I get to that question, that's usually it's usually the second meeting that I want to meet with somebody. It's like, what's the goal? What are you shooting for? What do you want? And most people stare at me like, I've never been asked that question. What do you mean? What's my goal? What am I trying to do? What do I want? And that's usually a long conversation between me and them to understand, like, where are you shooting for? Because most people, they're like, oh, I'm shooting for that feeling, that feeling like I made it, like I'm there, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing I know about emotions, about feelings, is that they're fleeting. They're constantly changing. One moment you might feel, yes, I've made it. I'm here at the pinnacle of the mountaintop. You could think about this if you're someone like me who like to hike. You're hiking. You're like, man, when I get at the top of that mountain, I'm finally going to be happy. You made it to the top of that mountain. You're like, man, I did it. I'm so tough. And then you're like, but is this really it? Is this all that it is? Well, the happiness is gone. Guess I might as well walk back down to the car. I guess I walked up the wrong mountain. We go through this our entire life. If we don't have a goal, and a noble goal, a goal that is actually the goal, and most people think that money is the goal. Most people think that my emotion is the goal. Happiness is the goal. It's not. You are where you are every single time. Wherever you go, there you are. That's what that quote means. If you're not happy here at your home, you're not going to be happy in Italy. If you don't like your wife or your spouse, what do you think going to Hawaii is going to do to fix that? Wherever you go, there you are. You need to figure it out within yourself. It starts and it ends with you. But too many people in this world don't know what that means. They're afraid to look inside themselves. They're afraid to do the hard work because it's difficult, because no one sees your progress, because you can't go onto a TikTok and be like, I've just meditated, I finally reached enlightenment, follow me. I mean, I guess you can, but no one gives it, no one cares. But people see it in the long term. People see the work that you put in on yourself when you're by yourself in the long term. And in my estimation, the only thing that matters in life is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. Most people don't like that person. So they go around seeking validation, approval from other people so that they can say, can I like myself? Is that okay to like myself? Do you like me? Because if you like me, then at least I can like me. At the end of the day, you're still the one that has to put your head down on that pillow alone and think, do I like myself? And if that question is yes, I do like myself. I worked hard. I did what I wanted to do today. I made the best of my life of today. Then at least you can go to bed with your head held high. But if you go to bed and you have all the approval of the world, everyone's saying you're a great person, you're doing good, but you don't like yourself, none of it matters.
And I'm curious, I know a lot of people, most people, right, are not where they want to be. And those who are where they want to be, well, they want to continue growing and be somewhere else. But where do you kind of start, Chris? I know we're kind of getting a little bit more into the philosophy, right? This is Philosophy Friday, right? But where does a person start when they don't like what they see in the mirror, right? They go to the accountability mirror and they say, look, you're X, Y, and Z, right? $100,000 in debt, right? I'm overweight, you know, I don't like the relationships I'm in. You know, where does a person even start to turn their life around? What would you recommend for that?
I know you're going to hate this answer, but it depends. But the most important thing is you need to start. I think that's the hardest part is people look in the mirror and they're like, I don't like any of this. And then when you look at yourself in the mirror and I'm overweight, I'm in debt, my kids don't like me, I have a terrible relationship with my spouse and my friends, all of these things, you're like, what do I even do? Why even try? You need to choose somewhere. You need to start. You need to start messy. You need to just freaking start. Whatever, most people, when they look at a chasm to jump, if that chasm's too big, they're not going to do it. So what you need to do is you need to make the chasm smaller. If that's still too big, make the chasm smaller. Make it smaller, make it smaller, make it smaller. If you look in that mirror and you're like, man, I don't like myself. I don't like my finances. I don't like the way I look physically. I'm fat. I'm whatever. My relationship with my spouse is awful. You need to start somewhere and you need to take personal responsibility. Don't sit there and blame the world for where you are. If it's, hey, I'm $100,000 in debt. Okay, then I'm going to start small. Can I pay off $1,000 of it? Can I start putting $1 a day at my debt? And at least you'll know that you are the kind of person. This is what really matters. Am I the kind of person that can be the change that I want to see in the world? Can I stay true to my promises? Can I be consistent? Rather than getting from right now being in $100,000 of debt to no debt, that's a very big chasm to jump. But can I be the person that is worthy of being out of $100,000 of debt? Can I be the person that is worthy to put in work every single day, consistently, when no one is watching, in order to achieve the goal that I want? Because the only person that is watching, and they're watching every single time, is you. Your subconscious, your conscious is watching. And every time that you tell yourself you're going to do something and you lie to yourself. And the worst person to lie to, and the person we are all most likely to lie to, because it's so easy, is ourselves. You have to stay consistent. You have to do what you say and say what you do.
Yeah.
Because if not, you're going to look inside that mirror and you're not going to feel confident. And that's coming from a guy who looks inside the mirror every day and oftentimes does not like the person looking back at him. So I have to go and I have to put myself into the fire every single day. So at least at night, I can look in that mirror and be like, you did it. You did the best that you possibly could. Regardless if you met success or you didn't meet success, you freaking tried. And that's all that matters, is that you try, you gave it your best aim to reach the level that you wanted to. You might not make the goal that you want to get there, but I promise you, you'll end up in a better place than you are right now, sitting there lamenting the fact that you exist.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. That's beautifully said. I love that.
That's my rant for Friday.
I love it. I love that. I love that. I love the clip. I love the gem of, can I be the person I want to see change in the world? You know, am I the kind of person I want to see in the world and be that change? I love the idea of, man, I wish people were better. It's like, will you be better? People will follow. And I love that. So we're going to move on to our viewer mailbag. This is the part of the podcast where we get a letter in from the community. We read it out and we see if we can help them. Sometimes it's a financial problem. Sometimes it's a psychological problem. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm dating this girl and she cheated on me and XYZ. No, we haven't gotten anything juicy in a while. So if you guys want to send some juicy messages, letters, preferably, would love that. Would love that. Got to get the content up, TMZ style. Anyway.
And so, where do they go to do that, Dominic?
That's a good question. So you can email us at the Five Guys Video Podcast at gmail.com, or you can go to the fiveguyspodcast.com. Either way works.
It's the fiveguys.com. I made it even simpler.
The fiveguys.com. Yep. Or the Five Guys Video Podcast at gmail.com. Or email. You guys understand it. Alrighty, let's get right into it, boys. So, should I pay off my parents' house? How about that? Howdy, Five Guys. I'm 30 years old and I'm living with my parents. Cool. A few years ago, we bought a house together, and this is the first house my parents ever owned. We spent most of my childhood in rent-controlled apartments because they couldn't afford to buy, but now they love having a small backyard where they can garden and enjoy outside time. I contribute about $900 a month towards the mortgage. So far, I've built up a net worth of around $800,000 and have hit my FIRE number. And maybe just a quick pause. Chris, could you, what is a FIRE number?
Your FIRE number is basically at the point where you don't have to work anymore for money. Where you don't have to go paycheck to paycheck in order to survive. 800,000 for your FIRE number. I'm going to assume that's their coast FIRE number, meaning that they don't have to save any more in order to be able to retire comfortably in the future, unless they're going to be living off of $30,000 a year, just over $30,000 a year at 800,000. But I somewhat doubt it, depending on where they are. But we'll see. We'll see what they say.
My plan is to keep letting my investments sit until I'm 40, in which I will hope to have grown it to about 1.6 million by then, so I can retire early.
Okay, so that is coast FIRE.
Yeah. In addition to my investments, I have about $150,000 saved in high yield savings account. And I'm thinking about putting most of it towards our remaining mortgage balance, which is around $250,000. Gotcha. It wouldn't pay it off completely, but it would help. The loan is an FHA style mortgage with 3.5%. 1 second.
Nice.
3.5%. You heard that right. Interest rate, and monthly payments are around $2,000. Because of the loan structure, refinancing doesn't seem like an option. Why would you want to refinance, honestly? I mean, there are certain scenarios where you would. 3.5 in my lifetime, I don't know. My motivation here really isn't about improving my own financial position. I already feel like I won the game in many ways, but I do feel guilt. I was the main reason why we moved out of our rent-controlled apartment, and now I want to support my parents more as they're near their 60s. I do have some fun personal goals that might cost around $50,000 total, but they aren't urgent. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best use of my money, logically, emotionally, and financially. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. From Fi's insight, but should I be help? But Fi's insight, but is helping right? Little tongue twister for me right there. Interesting. So this doesn't sound so much of a financial question. I know there's a lot of finance around it, but that's just the wrapping paper. That's the wrapping paper. What's the gift inside, Chris? Because giving up a 3.5%, FHA mortgage, I don't know if it's a 30 or a 15 or what's going on, or, how much even the mortgage is. I guess he does say the monthly payment is around $2,000, but what is he getting at here? Because it seems like, they could pay it off, right? Maybe save a little bit of money. Or would they really be saving any money? Or is it more of just an emotional thing?
And now you've hit the nail on the head, Dominic. It's most people come to us, most people come to me trying to solve their money issues. Remember what we say all the time. Personal finance is far more personal than it is finance. It's far more your emotions, the way you feel, than it is the numbers. When I hear this person talking, yes, there is a financial component, but the financial component has nothing to do with any of this. This has to do with the feeling of guilt. And that feeling of guilt is strong. That feeling of guilt scares the bejesus out of most people, because that feeling of guilt makes us look inside the mirror and not feel good about ourselves. It makes us feel that we're going to be cast out of the tribe if people found out what we did. So we try to fix that guilt. We try to look for anything we possibly can. And it seems that this person has put themselves into, if I pay off the debt, if I pay off the mortgage, then the guilt will go away. But I have to ask yourself, or you have to ask yourself, person that wrote in, is having your parents move out of their rent-controlled apartment into a better place of living, a place where they have a garden, a place where they like more, what do you have to feel guilty about? I don't understand why it said in there that you were the reason they had to move. I don't know what that means. I don't know if you moved to different states or whatever, but everything sounds like a positive. So why do you feel guilty? Are your parents making you feel guilty? Or do you just feel guilty for some random ass reason? And rather than sitting down with that thought, meditating on it, seeing why is it that I feel this way, are you just saying, oh, if I just fix this, it'll make this feeling go away, rather than just being with it? You know, I used to struggle a lot with anger when I was younger. A lot. Like I was one of those angry people, and it scared me how I could get. And that's from growing up in my family, and that's just kind of was the norm. And it wasn't until I learned that, and I learned this from studying Buddhism, from working with people, from meditating and learning from great teachers. And I asked them, what do you do when you feel anger? And the person who I was with, my teacher at the time, said, I sit with it. I sit with anger. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean you just sit with it? And over time, I came to understand that when you feel anger arising, when you feel these emotions arising, you consciously or unconsciously try to push them down. You try to say, this isn't right. I shouldn't be in this. So you move it away. You try not to exist with it. You try not to work with it. But rather than just being with it, hey, anger, I see you there. What's going on, man? And you just let it rise, and then you let it fall, and you realize that it goes away. Same thing with guilt. Same thing with all of them. They're just passengers in the car, and sometimes they grab the steering wheel. Rather than punching them, fighting them, trying to put them into the trunk, just let them drive for a second. Eventually, they're going to give you the steering wheel back. But it's our brains that make it feel that if this is the feeling I feel right now, it's going to be like this forever and always. And the one thing in life that we can guarantee is that there will be constant change, and that eventually you will die, but that there will be constant change and taxes. Dominic, before I get into the finance part, a little bit more about the emotions, what do you think?
You know, I always wish that we had more information, right? Because without the information, we almost have to assume things, and I never like to assume things. How old is he? Where is he living? What's the cost of living? How are his parents retired? Right? We don't even know. They might still be working. I think it's always beautiful to take care of your parents. But like Chris said, I don't know if it was because of you in a bad way or because of you in a good way. I saw that I wanted more for them. I see that they love gardening. I see that they wanted to own their own house. I pushed them out in a good way, right? To buy their own house, to take advantage of the good rates.
So I know that you're coming here, listener, to hopefully get a little bit of the finance portion, because we can sit here and talk about your emotions all day, but most people come for the finance. So first off, I want you to know that you're financially secure. Coast financial independence at 30 years old with $800,000 invested and $150,000 in cash is more than just impressive. You've got options that most people don't because of the hard work and the dedication that you put in. Now, your question is about, should I pay off the mortgage? Mathematically, putting $150,000 towards a 3.5% mortgage likely is not the optimal choice. Your money could make substantially more earning elsewhere. I know that you said it's in a high yield interest account right now for the $150,000. I don't know. I mean, again, personal finance is personal, but $150,000 sitting in a high yield savings account seems excessive to me. Could you maybe lower that a little bit and then put more of it into your investments to speed up your timeline? But at the end of the day, I don't think any of this has to do with the money. I think that this is more about your emotions, more about your family, not about the yield on your returns. Your parents have never owned a house before until now, and you help them make that happen. That is powerful. For whatever reason, you feel guilt. And I need you to explore whether it's about the past decisions or your current values. Because paying off the mortgage isn't going to fix the guilt. But it might align with your values if that's something that you're choosing to do. So I need to know, is paying off the mortgage something that is bigger? Is it because you feel that I shouldn't be in any sort of debt? Or is it because I feel guilty for moving my parents to move? You need to know what's actually going on. You need to know thyself, just like Socrates said. Because from what you said in your letter, the mortgage, it's already manageable. You said that you're paying like $900 a month, and your parents are likely covering the other, or are likely covering the rest, I would assume, because you said it's $2,000. So you're paying more than half, or Yeah, you're paying about half. And if there's 3 people in the house, then it would normally be what, $700 each, 666 for 2,000. But you're paying almost half of the amount, and they're covering the other. So unless they're struggling, I don't see a crisis here to pay off the house. So here at the Five Guys, we're really big about the middle way. So maybe we can find something that could help everybody here. So instead of throwing the $150,000 at the house, can we consider keeping $50,000 for fun? Because it sounds like you've put a lot of work in, and you already said that you have $50,000 that you want to spend, and you want to go and live your life, which you totally deserve. Then could you use the other $50,000 to maybe put out the mortgage as a gift to your parents to help maybe take some of the burden away? If you find that the guilt is something that is important to you and you want to get rid of it. But please note that paying off the mortgage will not fix the guilt. You need to figure out why you feel guilty and either apologize to your parents or figure out what's going on there. Because that statement, I don't understand what's going on, but there's something that you're not telling us that you know what it is. So you need to explore that. And then relieve whatever money you have left over of the $150,000 as your security fund, as your emergency fund, as your investment buffer. This is the most important part. You've won the game. That means you get to play it by your own rules now. Emotional peace is a valid return on your investment. So many people think that, oh, unless my investments are returning this percentage, then it's the only thing that matters. For you to feel secure, for you to feel happy, that is an investment. That's an investment in yourself. So there's no rush. You can reinvest this in a year or 2 years. You've already given your parents something they've never had, ownership in a garden. That matters more than paying off the balance early to them. I don't know where these feelings are coming from, but that's something that you need to explore for yourself. Because I can tell you that paying off of the mortgage is not going to make the guilt go away. And I still don't understand where the guilt comes from. So that's something to talk to a therapist about, meditate on, or more importantly, sit down with your parents and figure out what's going on in their head. Because my fear is that you have a story in your head about what your parents' story is, and you don't know that to be true.
Yeah, the closer you can get to the truth, the more understanding you can have. And I honestly, I agree 100% with what you're saying, Chris. And really getting to what your parents are feeling. What are their emotions, right? Are they sad to leave their apartment? Are they happy to be in a new home? So, yeah, I think it's a difficult choice, but I also think 150K in high yield savings is a little steep. Is a little steep unless you're right. Like for me, if you're putting money away in a high yield savings, right, for a rainy day investment, to me that makes sense. And when I say investment, I don't mean stocks or traditional bonds or anything like that. I'm thinking more of like down payment on, right, rental properties, a Section 8 home investment, or like an apartment complex, something like that, right? So that's kind of like my theory that maybe that's what he's kind of thinking, which is honestly great because then you'll have more income and pay off the house faster if you want. But honestly, there's really no need to pay off that house quicker than you need to, since it's only a 3.5% rate. And that's generationally amazing. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, I think I don't have anything else to add.
No, I mean, they've won the game. And right now, this is more about their emotions than math. And that's something that they need to figure out for themselves. So if you need help, reach out to a therapist. If you need someone to help who knows the finance side, you can reach out to me, Chris at monzonwealth.com, schedule a meeting in the top right corner, and we can sit down and at least talk and see what's going on under the hood. Because there's something much more deep here than what the letter has to say. And I don't know what it is. And I'd rather not just sit here and conject wildly. But that goes for even all of our listeners who oftentimes will come to me with a problem of this is the main problem, where once you dig deeper, you realize that that was not the main problem. There's often many, many things deeper that we need to figure out. So what is the foundation that we need to build our plan on? And with that, I say we get to win of the week. To our viewer, you're doing great. Keep it up, man.
Absolutely. Well, this week's on win of the week. Would you like to go first, Chris?
Sure. So I got approved for a new Chase Sapphire business card. It's the new card that just got released from Chase. So this one had an introductory offer of 200,000 points after you spend an ungodly amount of money in the first 6 months. So we just got that card. It's sitting here in my wallet right next to me. So we're working on hitting a new spending limit. Again, what we do with all these points is we just don't hoard them. We don't do anything crazy, but we use them. I guess we do something crazy with them. We use them to travel the world for basically free. And eventually we will do another episode, another probably 2 episodes on credit card hacking and everything I've learned over the past decade of doing it. But we do use credit cards strategically for points to be able to travel the world, which is pretty cool. So these 200,000 points are going to go a long way to our trip for Australia in 2026 that we're currently planning. So yes, we do plan very far in advance. And just like in finance, with credit card hacking, with everything in life, if you plan ahead, it can make your life so much easier rather than just kind of going with the flow and hoping that everything's going to work out.
That's exciting. That's super exciting. Is that the one where I saw some headlines? I don't know. I'm sure you saw it, but I saw some headlines that one of the cards annual fee was going up like substantially.
A few cards have
Was
done
that
that.
the
The Platinum's done that, and so has the Reserve. So yes, this card is one of those cards that got an increase on it.
got a little bit of a hike? Okay. But you still get access to all the cool features, the lounges, and all that fun stuff. Yeah, that's cool stuff. It's super cool. My win of the week is I started a little backstory before I mention my win of the week. If you are looking for a job right now, and you'll probably understand how difficult it is out there. If it's anything like my area, it's a little bit of a desert, right? Both literally and figuratively. But one of the things that I'm having some trouble with is finding a job I can really sink my teeth in and grow into, you know? And what I've kind of almost come to the conclusion is that I honestly, I think I might just have to start my own company again, right? And go down that route of being a business owner and working in a business and on a business, because there's really not very many good jobs out there. Right. So part of my win of the week is I started looking into buying service-based businesses, via seller financing and just different opportunities. One that I'm looking into right now is a pool cleaning company here in Arizona. There's probably 1.5 billion pools, it seems like. So just rather than starting from scratch, because I don't know too much about the business as compared to someone who's been in it, right? There's people who are selling their business and you can pay a fee, right? You take over their route that has 200 people on their route or whatever. And you're buying into a cash flowing business basically, which is like, I'm basically buying a job, which is crazy to sound like, but you'll at least have equity and you can grow it and all these different things. But that's part of my win of the week. Second win of the week is I learned how to make soda this week. I made an orange cream soda and it was very okay. So yeah, looking forward to the iteration of that. Next time, I think I'm going to do fresh squeezed orange juice and not get seltzer water because that stuff, it fizzes out so quickly. So I guess I'll just get like a Perrier or I don't know, something. Anyway, it's pretty fun. I enjoy making things at home. But that's my win of the week. I hope you guys have a win of the week yourself. Feel free to drop it in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to give it a like, a follow. If you are not already followed, that's crazy. Appreciate you staying for the entertainment, though. Any final thoughts, Chris, before we move on?
No, just please share the Fi Guys with one friend. Bring someone along for this journey of financial independence. Remember, this is only episode 5 Friday feedback for episode 3 of the Fi Crash Course. We still have quite a few more to go. I think this is going to be 11 or 12 parts of the Fi Crash Course. Not positive quite yet. We're remastering it as we go, but thank you so much. Please bring a friend along for this. This is the time to bring somebody along, is right now, because this is what's going to set that foundation. This will be the Swiss Army knife that people can turn to when in doubt in life, is be able to have this to go back to be like, oh yeah, this is what the Fi Guy said. This is the path. This is a path. You just need to make it yours. So with that, I'm Chris. He's Dominic. We're the Fi Guys. And we'll see you on Monday for episode 4 of the Fi Crash Course. Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.